Welcome to Hey Therapist. I'm your host, Leslie Ross. With me is my producer, Jay Wesley Lindley. Let's get mental. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Hey Therapist. What I want to talk about today, just to lighten the mood in case we are having some holiday stress, I want to talk about this nonsense on social media, the trend of we listen, but we do not judge. Now, in theory, this is a good trend, right? In theory, people should be able to say what they need to their partner. They should be able to tell them some things. And some of the ones I've seen have been funny, and some of them for sure are setups. But I have seen these where people are legit getting mad and realistically creating some serious relationship issues. I was watching one the other day. I've watched a ton of them. One of them was this man, it was man and woman, and it was the we listen, we do not judge. And they're talking about their kids, and, a lot of his that he stated was basically him skirting responsibility and putting everything back on her. We listen, we don't judge. Sometimes I go upstairs and say that I have work to do, but I'm really just watching something on my computer so I don't have to help you with the kids. Sometimes I act like I don't know how to do something, so you will go ahead and do it, or it's just quicker if you do it. And so I act like I don't know how to do it. It's feigned incompetence. It's weaponized incompetence. It's blatant lies. Sometimes I tell you I'm going to take a nap, but it's really just so you'll watch the kids for a little while. We shouldn't have to lie about that in our relationships. I saw one the other day, and I think it was probably a satire one, but he said, your engagement ring is technically used. I was engaged briefly to another girl. It didn't work out, but I didn't want to buy another ring. And, her face kind of looked like, what? But I think that one was satire, because some of the other things that they said in there were just ridiculous. If it wasn't, those two people should not be in a relationship, because they are just manipulating each other. It's like no one's being honest. And it's really one of those things that I laugh about. We all watch those and we laugh about them and we think it's funny. And I think it's good to listen and not judge. But also, what are we not judging? It's one of those things where we listen to our friends and we listen to our partners and we listen to family members and we try to not judge. But sometimes there is a little judgment. And I'm not saying judgment is good. We should never judge, because, we are not perfect people. But I think there is the opportunity to question the why of the situation. And I do that, as therapists, we are by nature trained to listen and not judge. I have heard some things that I'm like, Like, I'm doing everything I can to not judge you, but damn, how are you functioning in life? But sometimes, and with certain clients, when they say things, I'm like, why? And it's kind of a judgment in a way, but it's also to make people think about it. Because if you're saying something, you're like, oh, I gotta tell you this, but don't judge me, then you probably know that that's a little off kilter for you. You probably know that it's something you may not should have done, or that is like I said, abnormal for your personality, whatever it is. But you can say, oh, don't judge me. And most people won't. Like I said, I rarely do actually. I don't think I've ever really judged a client, because we do things, why we do things. Sometimes we don't know. Sometimes we do things out of character. Sometimes we do things because we just really want to try it once. And I can honestly say I don't think there's ever been a time that I've really held judgment over a friend, but I have definitely questioned some actions, and I've questioned my own actions. There are times where I'm like, ooh, if I tell somebody this, they're going to judge the shit out of me. And they probably would in their own way, as long as it's not in a negative way. Because there's a lot of the we listen and we don't judge that are just funny. And they're things that I'm sure people know their partners are doing. It's I pretend to not see the dog go to the bathroom so I don't have to pick up the poop. Or I pretend to be asleep so you don't want to try to have sex, which I don't really agree with. But, if that's the system and the partners are usually like, yeah, I know, like it's fine. But also if they didn't know that, then you're telling them that you're actively rejecting them. Instead of saying, I'm not interested tonight, I don't feel good, I pretend to have a headache so you don't try to have sex with me, or I pretend like I worked out too hard, and I've heard men say it in some of these, I pretend like I worked out too hard so we don't have to have sex or whatever it is. And just like, well, why would you just not either instigate sex, or why would you just say, you know what, I'm really not in the mood. I'll make it up to you, or we'll do something later, or whatever it is. Because if you have a decent enough relationship, you should be able to have these conversations with each other. And that's where I think the failure is in many relationships is, again, I've said it 1,000 times, communication. And on some of these, I feel like as I'm listening to them, and I hear clients say some things and I'm like, well, did you talk to your partner about that? And a lot of times the answer is no. So why are we not talking to our partner about that? And, I've had clients where they're in pretty toxic relationships and they'll say, well, I'm not going to talk about it because it doesn't matter, because they don't care about my feelings, or they'll turn it around on me and make it my fault. And I'm just like, and those are the times that I'm like, okay, cool. So why are we in this relationship? Why are we doing this? Why? So what good is in this relationship? I'm like, well, I mean, sometimes they act like they really love me and this is acceptable, because I don't think that's acceptable. But I can't tell anyone that. They have to get to that point. And it's well, they make me do this, or you make me. And a lot of the ones that I've seen on the We Listen, We Don't Judge is, when you do this, you make me act like this, or you make me do that. You make me do you. And it's like, I can't make someone act anyway. They make a choice. I have made a choice in my life that when someone comes at me hot, when someone is upset with me, when someone is angry with me, I don't react with anger. I don't gaslight them to make it their fault. I don't make them feel like they are in the wrong. I don't make them feel like I am the victim and turn it around, because I'm not going to do that to someone. No one can make another person do anything. Everything is a choice. And if you're not changing something in your life, that's a choice too. Because what you don't change, you choose. I saw that the other day. I don't know where it came from, but I really liked it. What you don't change, you choose. And I think in some of these, the We Listen, We Don't Judge things, are people choosing to either act poorly or accept bad behavior because they're not willing to change. They're not willing to step out. They're not willing to have a conversation. And when you have a conversation with someone about something that bothers you, and their response is, well, but you make me do this, or you make me do that, that's a toxic relationship. Be it a friendship, be it a romantic relationship, whatever it is. That is toxicity, because they should be able to say, okay, so how can I not do that? How can I not make you feel that way? What do you need from me? And once you have that conversation with someone and they then don't change, they are choosing to treat you poorly, and you are choosing to accept it. Because if someone is treating you poorly and you're accepting it and you're going along with it, then that is your choice. And there's nothing I can do about that. There's nothing anyone can do about that. It's why when we know people are in abusive relationships, or we know something is toxic, the good, supportive people are like, okay, and you're still good there? Are we done yet? No? Okay. You like it, I love it. It's not healthy, I'm here for you. We're not trying to change their mind. We're not trying to talk them out of being in that relationship, even though they may not need to be. They have to get to the point where they're sick of it. And one of the things that I have told clients many times, if you are in a relationship that you're unhappy in, that you don't feel fulfilled in, let's go back to the old pro-con list. On one side, they are giving me these things. Pros. Sometimes that list is really short. On the other side is our cons list, or things that they say to us. You make me feel this way. You always make it about yourself. You always make me mad. You're the one starting all the fights. You're the one doing all of these things. If not for this, then. Okay, come on. You deserve a relationship that makes you happy. And you're not always going to be happy in your relationship because you've got two people. And two people aren't always happy. And you're not always going to be happy because it's a relationship. And you're going to be going through it, or they're going to be going through it. But you're going to support each other in those times. And we're not going to punish someone else because we're going through it. But for the most part, 90% of the time, you should be happy and or neutral. You should be pleased that this person is your partner. You should be happy and proud to show them off and to say, yes, this is my boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, fiance, blah, 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 whatever it is. If you are not, or if you don't talk about your relationship because you don't want people to judge you, then it's probably not a healthy relationship. And it goes back to, you cannot make someone do anything. If you are with someone who is getting sober or stopping using something in any way, whatever the vice is, and they made the choice, but they made the choice because you want them to. They don't really want to. They may not yet see it as a problem, but it's creating relationship problems. Maybe it's creating problems in their life. Maybe it's creating problems in their work. Maybe it's creating problems in their friendship. But when you are in active addiction, a lot of times you don't see what other people see. You're not feeling what other people feel because you are in the addiction. You think you're fine. You think you're functioning well. You don't think other people see it. They do. And when somebody says, hey, listen, I've noticed this when you do that, you can say, oh, I don't do that. But maybe think about it. Maybe have just video a little bit and watch that with an open mind. Because a lot of times people will video someone in a state. Let's say they were drunk or high or whatever it is. And they are mean and hateful and all of that stuff. And you show them the video the next day or when they're sober. And you're like, look, this is what I'm dealing with. They're going to make excuses for that. Well, that night you don't show the part where you pissed me off. You don't show the part where I'd gotten upset and you just kept on. So they try to make it your fault. And that's just abusive behavior. And this going up and down is abusive. Okay, I'll do better. And they do better for a moment. They do better for a couple days. They do better for a couple weeks. And then they're back on their bullshit. And you're like, but where did that person go? Because abusers don't start out as abusers. People who are toxic don't usually start out toxic, or you wouldn't be in a relationship with them. They love bomb you. They make you feel special. They make you feel pretty. They make you feel handsome. They make you feel smart. They make you feel loved. They make you feel all of those things they know that you're looking for. And then they slowly start that change into who they are. And if you're in a relationship with someone and you're missing that person that you fell in love with, and that's why you're in it still, that is not who they are. And at least it's not who they are right now, and it's not who they're choosing to be. And if you have had these conversations, if you have said, hey, you know what? I really dislike it when you speak to me in that tone. I really dislike it when I'm trying to share my emotions or explain to you what hurt my feelings and why. And you turn it back on me instead of listening. And they say, okay, let me see what I can do about that. And they do start working on it. And they may not be perfect because it may be new to them. It may not be how they operated in other relationships. It may not be the communication style they're used to. So they may have a fallback, and you have to say, you know what? This isn't what we agreed on. I thought we were going to talk to each other better. And in that moment is their chance to say, you right, my bad. Got a little off kilter there. Let's regroup because I want this to work. I want to be better for the relationship, for myself, for all of those things. But if they're going through whatever and they say, I'll stop doing it, I'll stop using it, I'll stop doing, and then something happens and you say, well, I thought you weren't going to do that anymore. And their automatic response is, well, you made me mad. Well, you hurt my feelings. Well, you didn't do what you said you were going to do because whatever. They're making a choice to do the bad behavior because they could make a choice to say, hey, you know what? When you get upset with me or when you talk to me like that or when you act like I'm going to do something wrong before I've done anything, it makes me want to go do XYZ. And I'm trying not to do that. So let's regroup. Let's do what we need to do and have those conversations. So it's really about that open communication. But if someone doesn't want to change, they are going to continue to use things against you. You're going to continue to say, well, you made me. If you wouldn't have pissed me off, I wouldn't have gone and done that. If you wouldn't have acted like my mother, if you wouldn't have acted like my father, if you wouldn't have tried to parent me, I mean, that's a big one, then I wouldn't have done that. If you weren't trying to act like my boss, if you weren't doing all these, like whatever it is that they're using against you, that's not a you thing. That's a them thing because they are choosing not to change and they are making it your fault. And if the relationship has gone on long enough and you're in the cycle of abuse, you're going to want to say, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. How do I fix it? How do I fix me? When in fact, it's not a you issue. It's a them issue. But when you're in it, it's hard to see. And that's why I encourage people who are in relationships that just don't feel good. We all deserve love. Everyone out there deserves to love and be loved. And to love and be loved in the way that you want to love and be loved. And again, it's not going to be perfect. No one ticks everyone's boxes. But if you can get just enough, if you can get all the ones that you really need, the other ones aren't going to matter so much. But you deserve that. Whether you believe that in your heart of hearts, because maybe you were raised in dysfunction. Maybe you were raised in chaos. Maybe you were raised with abusive family members, abusive parents who treated you poorly and acted like you weren't good enough and treated you like you weren't good enough or smart enough or lovable. If that's the little kid in you, the adult in you gets to choose a different path. If you're being highly emotional, if you get worked up and you feel like a little kid, you got some trauma in there we need to deal with. Just recognize, you know what? This makes me feel like I'm a little kid. This makes me feel like my mom used to make me feel. This makes me feel like my dad used to make me feel. And I don't want to feel that from somebody. So I'm going to make a choice to not be in that relationship. And it's scary because it could lead to loneliness. It could lead to you being alone. It could lead to a break in that and finding yourself. But I say all the time, it's better to be alone and lonely every now and then than lonely and with someone. If you have a partner and you are feeling lonely the majority of the time, that ain't it. That is not the one you need. That is not the partner you're looking for. And it's hard to end those because even toxic relationships provide something for you. And it may just be providing someone there, even though you know they're going to make you feel bad when you call, even though you know they're going to make something your fault, even though you know they're not going to give you what you need, it's still someone who is there for you in their own toxic way. And it's what you're accepting right now. So it's important to recognize that being alone is okay. I'm not saying it doesn't suck sometimes, but it's way better than being disappointed by someone who is saying they love you, but treating you like shit. That's not love. And you can make all the excuses you want for them, but if they are not actively seeking to change behavior, then that is who they are and that is who they want to be. So think of your partner as kind of the mirror on Little Mermaid where Ursula had changed into the beautiful princess, but when she looks in the mirror, she's still Ursula. That's your partner. Like they can put on this face and they may do all of these things, but deep down, They may not be the best for you. And that's not a you issue. It is not because you are unlovable. It is because they don't know how to love you the way you need to be loved. And some relationships just don't work. And it may suck, but it's okay, because it's better to go find one that works. It's better to have that alone time. It's better to have that downtime, to be a little lonely, than to stay in a relationship that's not healthy and to stay in a relationship that's just reinforcing all of this negative language that we have about ourselves. So we work on getting rid of that negative language, but we also work on eliminating people that reinforce that. And sometimes that is our romantic partner. Sometimes it's a friendship. Sometimes it's family. We don't allow people to make us feel bad. And if you are, work on that. There's therapy, there's self-help books, there's other podcasts, there's, all kinds of things. You can do your own research on self-esteem, self-love, self-worth, and getting rid of some of these old emotions and these things you think you need. Because there is comfort sometimes in the chaos. There is comfort in knowing what to expect. Because if you've always had shitty relationships and people have always disappointed you and that's your expectation, then sometimes if you are not healed and you are not ready, then when you do get into a good relationship where someone is treating you nice and they're doing all of the things that you want and they're ticking your boxes, you may not believe it. You may self-sabotage. You may run the other way. You may do these things because you get scared because you don't know what that is. You don't know what being loved is like. You don't know what having someone truly appreciate you and care about you and all of that feels like. So it's important to know yourself and what you want. It's important, to circle it back around. It's important to also not judge, because we have all screwed up. There are things in our lives that we are not proud of. I have plenty in my life that I am not proud of. And I have things in my life that people judge me on when they hear. And it's just really not fair, because everyone's life experience is different. And almost everyone, at the time that they're doing something that someone may judge them on, it seems like a good idea at the time. You may have thought it through, but you had limited resources. You had limited capacity. All you knew was what you knew. So whatever you were doing or whatever you were acting on or whatever happened in your life, you did it with possibly the best intentions. You did it with the knowledge that you have. You did it to maybe find happiness. You did it to maybe make someone else happy. And this was before you were able to understand you don't need to do that. And when we're listening to someone and we hear things or they say something and you're like, oh, ooh, okay. And it may be something that could elicit that response. Before we give that response, think back into your own life. Think about those things you don't tell people. And a lot of times it is something that you'd be like, oh, I wouldn't have said that out loud. Maybe they don't care anymore. Maybe they're not afraid of being judged by it because they have come to terms with it. They are okay with it. It is part of their life. But before you judge, look inside. Before you do any TikTok challenges with your partner, know why you're doing it. Is it going to be all fun and games? Like, if we're going to do those things, if we're going to do challenges and say, we listen, we don't judge. I use your cup sometimes because I know it annoys you and you take it away from me and it becomes a game. Okay. But if we're truly disclosing kind of terrible, shitty, borderline abusive or actually abusive, toxic things that we're doing to our partner in hopes to make a good video, just be careful, because it may not turn out the way you want. And they may say, oh, it's all fun and games and laugh it off at the time, but they're not going to forget what you said. See you next week. For my producer, Jay Lindley, I'm Leslie Ross. Thank you all for joining us. Please send any questions or comments through the website, heytherapist.com, or email help@heytherapist.com. They may be featured on the show anonymously. Hey Therapist is an SEOK radio production and is for your entertainment purposes only. Thank you for joining us. Make good choices.